One.
Wholeness family. Again, I'm thankful, honored, great pleasure of mine to be able to share something with the family when hopefully to continue to open our understanding of who we are, the power that has been bequeathed unto us, and how to utilize it. And I want to go back uh, to this time cycle that we keep harping on between the 16th and 17th century. And within that period of time, uh, everything that we are faced with and acting out within the social construct or the simulated reality was actually investigated and worked on to perfect within that cycle of time when all we read about the wars that was taking place, 1776, America winning her, freedom. We find the wealth being transferred from, our ancestors and the Queen of England, 1564, gaining her wealth from, she said, her black ancestral nobility. Very, very, very critical time. There's a lot of questions that our Goliath and myself discussed today that we got to look into in order to put all these pieces together in contemporary time. What Eitai and myself has been trying to do from a quote unquote spiritual, but I'm using the word energetic perspective and thought form was trying to help us see how the ancestors has laid out things within this prophetic framework. Well, everybody is not there in terms of understanding those things. We've been looking for someone to come and someone to give us the understanding of it. But I'm here to tell you there ain't nobody coming, and whoever has come, what happened, what they brought was something they had gotten from somebody else in most cases, and it was not their own. In other words, it wasn't the absolute, you know, um, thought, energy, knowledge that was in complete unison with the universe or cosmos itself. This is where we now have to go. We have to understand that. And I want to show you how this was done to cut us off from this. And side note, while it's on my mind, all the notes that I sent you, hold on to every one but the last one. The one you can delete it, option, meaning right now, the time, the end time, and the challenge before everybody's delivering. That's critical that we understand this here. And I'm going to make an insert into this document that's going to even help to magnify what you're hearing, going to hear from me today, and I'm sure what Eitai will be sharing with us. Why? Because this cycle of time, 16 to 1700, this is where it all began. Yeah. I'm going to start with understanding this within the simulated reality, what I'm talking about. Now, let's look at something here. We've been talking about dualism, and we have not really understood the depths of it because it's a term that nobody is talking about like that within the Black community.
Right.
Nobody. Now, the average man, yeah, he's been talking about it because he is what? Responsible for introducing it at a particular time that it would guarantee, if it was what? Not understood, it would produce, you understand, a position in simulated reality that until we understood it, we couldn't reverse it. We couldn't change it.
That's right.
Believe me. So I'm saying here, in the world of dualism, things are divided or separated instead of the normal being whole. Key point now. Everything that's normal is whole. But in the simulated reality, the objective was to divide and separate things from its wholeness. Now, listen to this. When things are divided and separated, the definitions within the dictionary must fit that same program.
That's correct.
It have to fit the same program, same template. You couldn't go someplace else to get an answer. You understand? That was going to bring an end to the simulated reality that he had set in motion.
Power to define.
There you go. Now listen to this now. We're going to take an example of a word that you hear all the time, and but once I give you the definition, and then I'm going to go to a couple of small points to magnify it. The word is abstract. Now, you may hear somebody use the term abstract. You might use it yourself. But what is really being said about something that abstract? It's in complete harmony with what I just shared with you. Abstract, it means disassociated from any particular instant. Disassociated from any particular instant. Well, if it's disassociated, disconnected from any particular instant, isn't that what? That's what? Division and separation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And if that's division and separation, then what do you what? Connect it to?
Right.
No particular instant is saying, any particular instant. Then they say, this makes it what? Difficult to understand. So everybody is trying to figure, well, this don't connect up. You all didn't make this clear. You didn't make this clear. We start to blame one another for not making something clear that has already been what? You understand? Confused, and we have become very obstinate in the belief of the confusion. Therefore, we will not allow ourselves to look beyond our own confusion. We must blame somebody. You gotta hear me now, because this is so real.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm gonna look at a word that you've been hearing, cosmic, what is that? Cognitive dissonance. Now keep that in mind. Cognitive dissonance, but I'm gonna go back to the brain classes. And I told you about the Newsweek, all of that. We don't have to pull it up. Grow your mind. The truth about boosting your brain's performance. Now, here it starts off by saying cognitive enhancement strategies. Well, let's ask ourselves. If you talk about cognitive enhancement strategies, most of us think the word cognitive means to think. Cognitive does not mean to think. Cognitive means to know. That's a difference now. Now, so what I don't know, there's absolutely no way for me to understand it because I don't know it. But again, we have to be able to what? Comprehend and then come to know that which don't nobody else know. Other than that, we are dependent upon somebody else to make us to know something. Follow me carefully now. Listen here. Read the definition of cognition. They talk about cognitive enhancement strategies. It says cognition. It means to become acquainted with, to know. Now that's the etymology. To be acquainted with, to know. That's cognition. Okay, now let's go back to the brain class. We're gonna read something. It says greater cognitive capacity. Now, what is that saying? The greater knowing capacity, not thinking. Not thinking. The greater cognitive capacity comes from having more neurons or synapses, higher levels of neurogenesis. the creation of new neurons, especially in the memory forming hippocampus, and increased production of compounds such as BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which stimulates the production of neurons and synapses. Now we're going to jump over and we're going to understand now how this new synapses and new neurons cause you to become more efficient. But wait a minute now. Let's go back and connect this up. If I put you in dualism, as opposed to holism, everything that you would be doing in dualism was to what? Subtract, divide, and disconnect everything from everything.
Right.
Trying to understand everything. It ain't gonna happen. It can't happen. You cannot keep what? Reducing and reducing and reducing and reducing and go forward. You're gonna go backwards. You can't ascend. You must what? Descend.
Now, see, that's where we get that term.
I didn't hear you, Eitai.
That we when we don't understand, we want somebody to break it down for us.
There we go. Break it down. So we got to stop and ask ourselves about ourselves. There's something wrong with ourselves. I read to you the other day where it said, stop blaming. Came from Chromatica. Something is telling you something about yourself, but you can't what? Accept it simply because you've been programmed to dualism and you believe that's the way things function.
Right.
This is all a construct to keep you under control. Now listen to me now. We're going on. He said one of the strongest findings in neuroplasticity, the science of how the brain changes its structure and function in response to input. Now, we concerned about presently changing the structure, but the damage had already been done. The input was done between 1600 and 1700 that done changed the structure. And we now trying to find some food, some physical food that's going to what? Change the structure again.
Come on, Nasik.
But the most significant food that you need is some words that will lock you back into your relationship to yourself and the universe. That's the food that you need.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the superior food. Not the physical food. The body begins to what? Overwork itself trying to digest all the physical food that you eat. You have no time for introspection, retrospection, and deep contemplation on anything. Because what happened, you end up what? Eating and falling asleep. How you gonna think when you sleep?
Come on, Nasik.
That's symbolic of being dead.
Yes, yes. High point, Nasik. High point.
So we got to look at this now. Then he goes on to say, is that attention is almost magical in its ability to physically alter. So now something done happened that done what? Caused the brain to be almost instantly altered and enlarged function. Now, these what? Altered brain circuits are directly connected to the simulated reality. That's the foundation of it. Now, we're going to go back and link this together. Now, here we go. Show you what the objective was. And this is from the Turning Point, the old edition, in the chapter, The Newtonian World Machine, I'm reading on page 41. Now, as I said, you think the word, and I said we thought the word, cognition mean to think. Now listen to this here. One of their great thinkers, he says Rene Descartes is usually regarded as the founder of modern philosophy. He was a brilliant mathematician, and his philosophical outlook was profoundly affected by the new physics and astronomy. He did not accept any traditional knowledge. Did you hear what I said?
Mm-hmm.
No respect
Right.
for any traditional knowledge, but set out to build a whole new system of thought.
Wow.
What do we think the new system of thought is? Duality.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to guess.
They built it perfectly to trap us in. We keep talking about the box. The box is what? The way you think. You already what? In the box. You're not going to get in the box. Your thought process will put you already in the box and in duality. We got to consider this. He goes on to say, according to Bernard Russell, quote, this had not happened since Aristotle and is a sign of a new self-confidence that resulted from the progress of science. There is a freshness about his work that is not to be found found in any intermittent previous philosophical science. Let me read that again. He says, this has not happened since Aristotle and is a sign of a new self-confidence that resulted from the progress of science. There is a freshness about his work that is not to be found in any eminent previous philosophical science or philosophers. Now, I'm going to jump back one page and I'm going to show you. It says, to make things even more difficult, he said, for scientists to describe nature, they wanted to make it what? A method that they could describe nature, not how nature functioned, but how they described it.
That's right.
Okay. Mathematically, Galileo postulated that they should restrict themselves to studying the essential properties of material bodies, shapes, numbers, and movement, which could be measured and quantified. Other properties like color, sound, taste, or smell was merely subjective mental projection, which should be excluded from the domain of science. So your sense organs, they completely, you understand,
Eliminate.
separate you from them and their connection to the cosmic universe. And how they did it was through a method of thought called dualism. This is why he said here, he said one of the strongest findings in neuropathy is the science of how the brain changes its structure and function is response to the input. So it was the input that changed the whole structure of everything. This is why Abu Ghazal was referring to scientific social engineering.
Right.
And what that engineering did, it created a way of thinking and evaluating things that always keep you at odds within yourself and relationship to the creation. Coming to my last point. Now, let's go back to cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is not something that going to what? Have some fears about you already in cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance It says 1957, interesting date. Why? Because what? They done completed what they had scientifically had found out. And they was able to what? Mastermind it, so to speak. Read it. He says psychological conflict resulting from incongruous beliefs and attitudes held simultaneously. If that ain't what's going on the phone, on this phone, on our calls every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I see that's the trouble.
Tell me that's the struggle, ain't it?
That's the trouble that you talked about.
Think that's the trouble, and that trouble causes us to struggle.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So this conflict is what? Psychological. It is what? Your brain is saying one thing, and what you've been programmed to believe as a mind is saying something else. So there's the division. You say, well, I feel one way, but what? My thoughts is another way. But you don't know. You're just thinking. You back and forth, right and wrong, up and down. You know, that's the duality. That's the struggle. That is the struggle. That's the war. That's the trouble. You know, so we're gonna expand upon this, you know, even greater at another time. But I just wanted to set this in motion because I'm looking at, you know, when I thought about what the prophet Daniel was trying to tell us in terms of he holding up his right hand and the left hand into heaven and swearing by him that lives forever, this cycle of time, trouble never was since there was a nation. But then it says this would be a time of deliverance. And I'm asking myself, these symbols, we had no idea what they mean, but today we know what they mean today now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So anyway, this is just my introduction into even some higher things that Eitai gonna share with us. So wholeness family.
Wholeness.